express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here, the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Hold up.
He ran on that, and he has been governing on that.
Ah!
He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice, and she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went to the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They're able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins a Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
During that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very
That's
happy
simply
with.
not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialists. You're going to socialists.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any. And one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said, and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
doesn't say. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
now. I am,
and
the
they're going to dominate
Party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the Democratic Party is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about.
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200. It would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban.
All right, gentlemen.
Which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
Mr. President, as a moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is all.
You don't know it's on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court.
Well, there's nothing happening there.
Donald,
and you don't know her view on Roe v. Wade.
I don't know
her view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn
That's right.
Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate. Excuse me, I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obamacare. That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare. Chris, that was the worst part of Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it. And we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump healthcare plan?
Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something. That there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin. I give you an example, insulin. It was destroying families, destroying people because I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water.
Hi guys.
The truth, so cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs that what we're doing. Prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
This is open discussion.
No, but this is big stuff,
sir. You'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the vice president, which
that looks terrible, don't it?
That you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It's the actual video, guys.
I can ask you the question.
The live stream.
The party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of healthcare.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for
Sorry,
Medicaid.
trying to get it centered.
They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare would, Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option. Number one.
Joe, you agree with Bernie Sanders' far left on the manifesto, we call it. That gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
are you saying you didn't agree?
Listen to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
Not by much.
I'm here standing facing you.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to do is
Super Tuesday. You got very lucky.
Here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal.
Biden looks like
a
robot.
Everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure. I want to make sure.
You wanted last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make
Mr.
sure.
President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
Oh, come on, Trump, get him. Sorry, guys. I told you I was going to comment a little bit.
Bernie Sanders said the
whole idea.
There
is no manifesto. Number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan.
Folks,
absolutely agreed.
Folks, do you have any idea what this clown's doing?
Call it socialized medicine.
Mr. President.
I'll tell you what. He is not for any help for people needing health care. Because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price. Because, by the Obamacare
He doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a
fixed
plan.
it to an extent.
He has never done a
as
single
you might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
let the president, go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guaranteed pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, that they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well. And I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive, premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand this, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time. Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care. He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I have one final question for you.
And you still haven't answered anything, Biden. You just pointed out what you think Trump doesn't know.
We're talking originally about the Supreme Court here. If Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there.
Trying to get rid of that glare, but it won't.
But in fact, it wasn't brought up by the president.
See how it is? It's the live stream. It's not my fault. It's not my thing.
I'm saying the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now.
I respect all you guys' opinions. Believe me, I was a raging liberal for 15 years. Me and my wife. So, welcome. Enjoy.
Radical left. Would you shut up, man? Who is on your list, Joe? Who's on your list?
Gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really
Is Biden going to take his break yet?
Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
Him go.
47 years, you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so
I feel like we're in a boxing match.
let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far, and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 5%, or 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and we were insisting that the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job she was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open. Open schools, it costs a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you.
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think we should have closed our country. Wait a minute.
It's 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of you Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you are in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people. And you would have been.
And by the way, his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of the vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all. Nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't trust Johnson, Pfizer.
By the way, gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those are your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call
So
it
you're
left, I don't know
suggesting
what I
that
call
the
it.
head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Snobby?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
He said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after
when it's
that.
generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up logistically. They're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This is the same man.
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
By Easter, this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same
I would say
man.
sarcastic.
That would
you
seem-
know that.
I
would have said
And
sarcastic.
so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up
We'll have the vaccine
I
sooner
want to
than
pick
that.
up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying that public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying you can't,
Everybody
or
knows.
Senator
And-
Harris is saying
no,
you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can't trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health
Did say
experts,
that.
quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not. They're the people. And by the way,
to the scientists that are in charge,
by the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market. One of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart?
Yeah.
So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe.
No,
If you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
You see,
And it's
We're going
going up
to the
fast.
economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay.
Look forward to it.
When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide
Tell that
them
to Nancy
plastic.
Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the
Brian
way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the Senate, and he sits at his golf course and literally think about it.
You probably play more than I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country, and I want to keep it open. And we did a great
He just
thing by
admitted
shutting
he
it
shut
down.
it down.
Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd. Because it's a political. But those states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer, and in fact recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
I think
the
masks are
efficacy
okay.
of
You have to understand, if you look, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on it, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to, but I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from me. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses
I feel
is
like
give
watching
them the
a
wherewithal
boxing
to be
match.
able to open. We provided money, the
And I was
Congress.
asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks and social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
The same CDC said the opposite.
Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
Not say the
We got
opposite.
Sure did.
a minute left in this
Masks
segment.
are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks good.
I'm
I'm
gonna
okay with masks.
I
I'm
want to
not
ask you
fighting
both about
masks.
one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller
You can't get any more
events
people.
Because nobody will show up.
people with.
That's true. Nobody shows up to his rally.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big
Oh,
rallies?
Chris
why
Wallace
you
just
not?
laughed,
You go
though.
first, sir.
I think Chris
people
Wallace just
want to
laughed.
hear what I have to say.
But are you
I've
not
done a
worried
great
about
job
it
as a
spreading disease?
president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you not worried about
we
the
have a
disease
lot of
issues,
people.
sir?
Well, so far we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. and literally on 24 hours notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he has? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I can't. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 40,000 people
you wanna-
at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up, because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
Ben, he's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't.
Amen.
Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy?
Yes.
The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now instead of still 204,000 people. It's too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week, you saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look at these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who have been putting themselves in a way to make sure that we can all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency. Not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses. Nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right. Your time is up, sir. Well, you're going to get to it.
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both have 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out?
Gentlemen, we're going to get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, There was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under leveraged because the assets are extremely good, and we have I built a great
I'm asking you a specific question, which is.
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President, I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars.
So
yes.
not 750.
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is.
Amen.
He passed a
I
tax
pay
bill
more taxes
that
than I
gives all
have
these
to.
privileges for depreciation
Whether I make $1 million
and for
or
tax
17,000.
credits. The building,
Why
we
would
get tax
anybody?
credits like the hotel.
He's
on
donated
Pennsylvania
every
Avenue,
cent
you
he
got
made
that,
since he
which,
went
by
in
the way,
office.
was given to me by the Obama administration.
Every
if you
cent.
can believe that. Now the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who in fact need the help. People out there
The
need
tax
help.
cuts will put all that extra money back in your check.
Because you were president screwing things up.
You were a senator.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
Yeah.
We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make
That's
this federal government
buy
spend
American. That's
$600
Trump's.
billion a year on everything from
Buy American,
ships
hire
to
American.
steel
That's what he's been
to
saying for 4
buildings and
years.
the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made.
You never bought anything American, Joe. You buy Chinese, you buy Ukraine, you buy everything but American. You sold out America.
Make the corporate tax 28%.
Millions of
should be
jobs
21%.
to China
You have
by allowing
19
corporations to
91
take their
companies,
businesses over there so they don't have to pay
and
taxes.
Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it
Billions
before
of
when you
dollars.
were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
Right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done, and you know what happened?
You got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower tax for American people.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. if you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of
of the
companies that are
companies-
already here, they'll leave for
hardly
other
any
places.
companies have
They will
poured in
leave,
here.
and you will have a
I mean,
depression, the likes of which you've never seen.
Look,
Mr.
we
Vice President.
inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
He blew
booming.
it. He blew
It wasn't booming.
It
It was the weakest
Well, sir,
recovery
is it
since
fair to, wait, is it fair to say he blew it when, in
When
fact,
COVID came.
when there was record low unemployment
Yeah.
before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris, wait.
Number two.
Chris,
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you were number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take
guy
a
is-
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Why
did
am I
not agree.
standing
Sure did.
fair?
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back the
gave up on
automobile industry.
manufacturing.
All right, let him
We brought back, I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies
No,
came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to
They're
Ohio.
not having
And
it.
they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch.
All
That
right, gentlemen,
18%. China ate your lunch, Joe. And no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true.
Oh, really?
How many grandkids you got, Joe? 5. No, 7, Joe. He had 2 with strippers in the last year, remember?
And by the way,
Well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice
He got
Mr.
$3.5
President,
million.
it is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr.
No.
President,
Very true.
it's an open discussion, please.
No,
It's a fact.
Well,
There's
you
no-
have raised an issue, let the
It's been
Vice
totally
President answer.
discredited.
Did
There was
Burisma
a
pay him
report-
$183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr.
Look,
President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr.
The only guy
President,
that
let him
did
answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position
There
has been
isn't-
thoroughly, thoroughly discredited.
There's no
and
excuse.
Media.
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our
because they refuse
allies,
to
by
talk
the
about it
World
because they're
Bank,
backwards.
by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people
President,
who
please stop.
testified under oath.
So let me
Under
ask you
oath.
this.
Anyway,
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to
even
you.
People under.
You got $3.5
He
million from
testified-
Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh,
I did
really?
it
I'd like to know
honorably.
who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the
I'll fire
people who
them.
testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't
Well,
do a good
here's
job. With you,
Go ahead,
they
you
say
get the, wait a minute, you get the final word now.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me, this.
Hey, let me
this
just
person.
tell you.
No, Mr. President,
$3.5
Mr.
million,
President.
Joe.
That is simply.
Why did
not
he
true.
deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's
My
already.
family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
Sure did.
And they're right here.
Mr. President.
Every single
They
one
didn't
of
get
them
a cent. They lost millions.
His family, it's about your family.
They didn't
American
make $3.5
people.
million
He doesn't. That's not true. It doesn't.
What if
want
Trump
to
Jr.
talk
had
about
a kid with a
what
stripper
you need.
and got caught with a crack pipe in a strip club this year? That wouldn't be allowed in this debate. But we can't talk about Joe Biden's son, who is now got money from 3 different countries. Please, I'm over it.
The answer to the question
It's not
no.
fucking fair.
Ukraine
No, sir.
with $1 billion if you
That
get rid
is
of
You know what, you're
absolutely not true.
Take doing it.
You're gonna have
Take.
True.
Gentlemen, I hate to raise my voice, but I think it seems to be, why should I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, you each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
I feel like we're not getting any information out of one of the contestants, and the other one's at least answering the question. The other one's just saying, he don't know anything. He don't know anything.
Please continue on.
He don't have a plan.
The issue of race.
He's
Vice
repeating
President Biden,
himself.
you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the 2 of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people look like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging.
Fields? You're on a freaking street, Joe.
Anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the
She had a heart
president, he
attack,
said there
Joe.
were very
She got hit by a car and had a heart
people on
attack.
both sides.
Yes.
No president's ever said anything
They
like
never
that.
talked about that, though.
It is
Now,
sir.
second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible.
A church
And
that
then
got set
what
on
happened
fire.
after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with
he
racism?
did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day and they put up their hands and we got back back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left, and they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when you find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right,
what is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place?
That is not peaceful protest.
No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and frankly very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's racist.
You just don't.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important that people know. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you look at You go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now. But the reason is that the Democrats that run these cities don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned. Are you in favor of
Hey,
law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You follow.
Are you in favor of law and order? Go ahead, say it.
You asked a question, let him finish.
Law and order. Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 17%, 15% in our administration. It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more than ours.
All right, we're now, Mr. President, you're going to, Mr. President,
every record in the book.
Mr. President, you're going to be very happy because we're now going to talk about law and order.
We had trouble with Democratic-run cities.
That's exactly my question. There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have, our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone. And you would see problems like
he wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not. I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though, and in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. Yeah. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means...
let me, if I might finish the question, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding it, his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down.
You mean like the ones that dumped buckets of water on the cops all summer in New York City?
That's not what
and then threw the buckets at him?
That is not true.
Those police? Community policing, that was what they were doing, walking around the community, trying to get to know people.
All right, who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported.
Gentlemen, I think I'm going to take back the moderator's role, and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree, you talk about peaceful protests, many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted. And anyone who commits it
But
should
you've
be
never called
prosecuted.
for the people, the leader, excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to call and bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if you just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Here.
Oh, really?
Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S.
asked him a
Marshals
question.
to get the killer of a young man in the middle of the street, and they shot him. And for 3 days,
President Trump
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals, and they took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help us cause. That's what this is all
I
about.
don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the point.
Go
The
ahead.
point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly,
And
every single solitary
Okay,
point.
and to end this, button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly
I
criticized.
have to answer his
No,
statement.
you have
His
repeatedly.
statement?
You have
Just
repeatedly. No,
wait.
you've been talking
He
back
made
and
a
forth.
statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
sir.
I would love to end it.
You know, if you want to switch seats, we can
Very quickly.
We can do that. But I'm
send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
There was no white supremacist, no
Go
shot.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go
supremacists
ahead.
and
What would you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director.
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not
Kid.
militia. That's what his
It's an idea.
FBI director
Gentlemen,
said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
That hits you over the head. That's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell
Did
you
Joe
what?
Biden
no
just say
idea.
Antifa is an idea?
Antifa is a dangerous
All right,
radical
gentlemen, we're
group.
now moving on to the Trump and Biden records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term,
Wow.
it is generally a referendum on his record. But
That's
Vice
why
President
the
Biden, you
FBI
like to
also
quote
made them
your dad's
designated them a
sayings, which is,
terrorist
"Don't compare me
organization."
To the Almighty, compare me
Kind of
to the
weird how they're an
alternative. And in
idea,
this
but
case,
they
sir,
also
you are
designated
the
them a
alternative.
terrorist organization
Looking
very recently.
At both of your records, I'm going to ask
Let's
each
just
of
not
you,
forget.
why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. He was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important, By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I have so many judges? Because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like, you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges, it's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused a recession.
Well, I miss that boom, guys. I don't know about you.
The fact is that I've gone head to head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff.
But you took his money.
He still refuses to even say.
And you took the mayor of Moscow's $3.5 million.
Soldiers.
Your son got $3 million.
And by the way, my son.
Wait a minute, Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
No, I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
It's not a debate.
A
debate means
yes,
you.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being,
The Democrats won't vote on a
when we were in
package.
office, there were 15% less violence.
Every
in
time they've been
America
up to
than there
vote,
is
they
today.
walk out.
He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being
That was proven
just being
completely
suckers.
unfounded.
My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there.
And he got kicked out for cocaine.
He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people.
Are you talking about the dead one?
Were heroes,
Really?
and I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden.
Yeah, that's because you won't talk about Hunter.
Hunter got thrown.
Hunter, the stripper lover.
He was thrown
crackhead.
out, dishonorably discharged.
Amen. Thank you.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. And once
you
became
gave him
vice
some
president,
jobs.
He made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
That is simply
and various
not
other places.
true.
He
My
made
How many
son-
grandkids do you have, Joe?
and he didn't have a job.
My son,
Ask him, Trump.
Like a lot of people,
He refuses to acknowledge that he has 2 grandkids that were proven by DNA tests this year alone.
He's worked on it.
What kind of president ignores his own grandchildren that exist?
That is totally
A deadbeat.
You've already been
totally discredited.
He only talks about his dead son, Bo. He doesn't talk about how Hunter got with Bo's wife for a year and banged her out. Excuse my language.
Sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
$3.5 million from the
Let's
mayor
talk
of
about-
Moscow.
That is not true. That report is totally discredited. Mitt Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money. That report was written for political reasons.
You know,
Oh my
I'd
God.
like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest
Yeah, I'm
fires
sure
in
you
the
would,
West
Mr.
are raging
Biden.
now. They have
How many
burned
grandkids you got,
millions of
Joe?
acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change, and what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint, and people are
We were
actually
paying
very happy
10
about
times
what's
more
going
than
on
any other
because our
country.
businesses are doing well. As far as the fires
And
are
expected
concerned,
to be
you need forest management in addition to everything else. The forest
kept up
floors
way,
are loaded
have
up
all the
with
stuff way
trees, dead
before other
trees that are
countries.
years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management.
What do you
You've got to have
believe?
cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change?
Instead of using
I
inmates
believe
from
that
the
we have
prison to
do
run the
everything
forest
we can to
fires.
have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very
Do you
exciting.
believe
A lot of people-
that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of the
I think
planet?
a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to
Oh
do
my
better
God,
management
Trump
of our forests.
doesn't not
Every
believe in
year,
global
I
warming.
get the
Holy
call,
shit.
California's burning. California's
Jesus.
burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good
Another
forest
lie
management,
debunked.
you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they live their forest cities. They're called
He's got
forest cities.
grandkids too.
They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground.
But sir,
that's burning down because of a lack of
But
management.
sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed
Yes.
fuel economy standards
You just
that
answered it.
are going to create more pollution from cars
Well,
and
not
trucks?
really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old
Amen.
slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer, it would be much cheaper by
But in the case of
$3,500.
California, they simply
No, but it
ignored
would
your
take a lot of
rollback.
cars off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now,
See?
and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit
Okay.
of gasoline. And,
That's not-
and I'm okay with electric cars too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just
All right.
crazy.
Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talked
Let me just
about
remind
new
everybody,
limits
Obama
on
just bought a
abolishing
$60
new limits
million
on fracking,
mansion
ending the use
on
of
the
fossil fuels
beachfront.
to generate electricity by
He's really not
2035,
concerned about
and zero net emission
rising
greenhouse
waters
gases
of
by
global
2050.
warming.
The
Of all
president
people, he
says
would know,
a
right?
lot of these things
Remember
would
that.
tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations and all the highways.
Hey guys,
that
will
we're
you
gonna be
share
building
this
in
stream
the
if you
future.
can?
We're
I'm
gonna
not really
build
wanting to
an
plug my stuff,
economy
but
that in fact is going
share
to
this if you
provide
would.
for the
And
ability
hit
of
that
us to
like if
take
you're just
4
chilling
million
here,
buildings
please.
and make sure that they in fact are weatherized in a way that in fact they'll emit significantly
everyone.
less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not not costing people jobs, creating jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not 15
Obama
bucks
said
an
too,
hour,
shovel-ready
but
jobs
prevailing wage,
that never
but
came.
having a new infrastructure that
That's
in
why I
fact
just can't
is
believe in
green.
that anymore.
And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord.
Oh,
I will
damn,
join the
now we're
Paris
definitely
Accord because
screwed.
with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart.
Because we
And
paid
talk
for it
about
all.
someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact is, it's all true. And here's the deal.
Talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings and rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion. That's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we
not the case.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$1 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. But the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion.
That is not my plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
not my plan.
You want to rebuild every
He
made a statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did is he said he called the military stupid bastards.
I
He said it on tape. He said stupid bastards. He said it.
Stop.
I would never say that.
Play it.
Go ahead. Mr. Vice President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all was ranting.
I'm having a little trouble myself, but and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental change will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. You're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
Do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
You support that?
No, I don't support the Green New
Oh,
Deal.
you don't? Oh, well, that's
Sounded like you
statement.
just did.
I
That
support
means you
the
just
Biden.
left the radical left.
I support
Oh, you
the
don't?
Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment. Election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be
Not
a fair
at
election?
all.
And what are you prepared to do over the next 5
If you
plus
haven't watched
weeks? Because
the
it'll not only be
Ilhan
election day,
Omar,
but also
Minnesota
counting some ballots, mail-in
Project
ballots
Veritas
after election
video, then
day.
you've been
What are
asleep.
you prepared to
Google
do to
it.
reassure the American people that the next president
You can sell your
will be
ballot
the
for
legitimate
$800.
winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of
They've
people
already
because
found
of
Trump
COVID
ballots in
that
the
are going to be
garbage.
voting by mail-in
Military
ballots like
ballots.
he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two,
That's
we're
not
gonna
the
make
same.
sure
It's
that
an
those
absentee
people who
ballot.
want to
He's in a
vote in
different
person
state.
are able to vote because
Quit
enough
lying to
poll watchers
people,
are there
Joe.
to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people
Those
from
are
voting
very different
because
ballots.
he's trying to scare
Those are
people
requested
thinking that it's
ballots.
not going to be legitimate.
So that you have
Show
to
up
provide
and vote.
ID.
You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is
Whatever
the
you
best
can
way
that we
for
can
you.
cheat for.
Because you will, he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, it'll be accepted.
You
But by
heard
the
that.
way,
Remember that.
If in fact
It
he
will
says
not.
he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. Because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change, or you get 4 more years of these lies?
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listen to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election.
No, they haven't
And
accepted
if you look
2016 yet.
Look at Hillary Clinton. If you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me, tried to do a coup. They came after me, spying on my campaign.
Amen.
They started from the day I won, and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country, and we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it
Red-handed.
all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General
Sure
Flynn.
did.
You better take a look at that because we caught you in a sense, and President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too, so don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay.
Thank you.
Soliciting, you're
You're
asking,
asking
they
for
send
it.
it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all
Dead
over the
people.
country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump. Just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're
9
being
of
sent
them.
all over the place. They sent 2 in a
Military
Democrat
ballots.
area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is
The
going
entire
to be a
borough
fraud
of Brooklyn
like you've never
got
seen.
the wrong
other thing, it's nice on November
envelopes.
3rd,
So if they tried to
and
send
you
their
see who
ballots
won the
back, all their
election.
ballots
And
would
I
be
think
thrown
we're
in the
gonna do well
garbage. The
because people
entire
are really happy
borough
with the
of
job we've
Brooklyn,
done.
you guys.
But you know what? We
Today.
won't know. We might not know for
Look it
months because these ballots are going to be all
And they
over.
were
Take a
sent
look
to
at what
mostly
happened in Manhattan.
first-time
Take a look at
voters,
what
so they
happened
wouldn't have
in
known the
New
difference.
Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places.
Because if your
They're not
envelope says
losing
something
2%,
different than your
1%,
ballot,
which, by the way, is too much.
they won't accept
it.
it.
Won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th?
it's a
November
week after
10th.
the next
That
election.
means that's 7 days after
What the hell?
the election. In theory, Should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that.
Sir,
all run by
2 minutes
Democrats.
is 2 minutes.
It's
All
insanity.
run by Democrats.
President Trump,
It's a rigged election.
you're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail.
And so
Now that
few people
millions
voted
of
in
mail-in
2018. It's not even
ballots have
funny.
gone out. What are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court, including
If you voted by
Justice
mail,
Barrett,
I suggest
to
you go into
settle an
person.
Yeah, I
Because
think
if your
we're counting enough to
mail-in
look at the
vote
ballots,
counted,
definitely.
you
I
will
don't
not
think
be able to
we
vote in
don't
person.
need them
But if you
in
get there
terms of
and
the
they
election
accept your
itself.
vote, then your
But for the
mail-in
ballots, I
ballot
think
was
so.
rejected.
Because what's happening is incredible. I read today where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They
Amen.
take
They
them, we
were
don't like them. We don't like them.
100,000 New York City
There are
alone.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What
is
are
you
gonna
go and
do?
vote. You do a solicited ballot.
No,
Amen.
Okay, I know you're
Tell 'em, Trump.
I'm
Tell
asking
'em.
you about the fact that millions of people
Go
You
vote.
and vote. You go and
No,
vote
but what
like
I'm
they
saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the
in
fact
the
that
old.
millions of people?
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have
It's
mailmen
registered
with
to
lots of
you.
it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers.
$800
This
for
is
ballots.
a horrible thing for our country.
There is no-
This is
In the
not-
time where
this
our
is not
economy is so
going to
bad.
end well.
There is
Okay.
no
This
evidence
is
of
not
that.
going
Vice
to
President
end well.
5 states have had
Go ahead,
mail-in
sir.
ballots.
No
for
proof.
the last
There's undercover
decade or
video
more.
all
5,
over
including
YouTube
2
right now,
Republican
all
states.
over
And
the
you don't have to
actual
solicit
news
the
that
ballot.
counts,
It's sent
not
to you.
cable
It's sent to
news.
your home. What we're saying is, they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by the time, by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because
You're
of the
wrong.
outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on
I
this.
love you.
Vice
It
President
It shouldn't
Biden.
take
He's
that
so
long.
angry he makes a statement like that.
If it's postmarked on the 3rd, it
Vice
should
President
be
Biden,
no later than the
biggest problem, in
5th.
fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been
7th at
fraud,
the latest, not the
historically.
10th.
It has been that sizable number, sometimes hundreds of
From your own
thousands
state,
of
for
ballots
Christ's
are thrown
sake.
out because they have not been properly filled out, or
Sorry,
there is
I'll
some
shut
other irregularity, or they missed
be fraud.
the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any
Oh,
court would settle this
please.
because here's the deal. When you,
That's why you
when
have a
file-
whole
when you get a
100
ballot
some
and you
lawyers
fill
ready
it
to
out,
fight this.
You're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you. That is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me,
No.
What did you just say? Did any of that make sense to you?
Swamping the system. You know it can't be done. You know it can't. And already
All right,
it's been
so now-
flawed.
Mail service
Final-
delivers
gentlemen, in the
185
final
million
question
pieces of mail a day.
In 8
ballots.
states, we can keep talking.
It's
In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and
Yes.
flatten them until election day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner
Oh,
is.
of course
It could
not.
be days, it could be weeks,
Could be months.
until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest, and will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you
I'm
go first.
urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch.
Yes, they did.
They're called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair
You're urging
election,
them what?
I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you
what
what,
does that
from
mean?
a common
Not go along?
sense,
Does that mean
I'll
you're
tell
gonna
you what
tell
it
your people
means.
to take to the
It means
street?
you have a fraudulent election. You're
what
sending
are you
out
gonna do?
80
And
million
what would you
ballots.
do about that?
They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two,
Okay.
they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
Oh, I thought I just said that a
Vice
few minutes
President
ago.
Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. Some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until election day.
That's stupid.
And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do
It's
it. And
democratic
by the way, our
dumbness.
military, they've been voting by
I know it's
ballots
not a word, but
for
I just
since the end of the
used it,
Civil
so
War,
bleh.
in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why was it not? Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots.
Yes, they have.
That somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established.
It's-
Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
You had an opportunity
Look
to
at
respond.
Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what
Vice
happened.
President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal.
Oh, yeah,
the
he
fact
is a
is,
lot.
I will
That's a
accept it,
problem.
and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome, and I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest
Okay.
ballot count.
Will you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate.
Honest ballot count.
We're
And I
going to
think
leave
he
it
does
there.
too.
To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for
Stick
hosting
around
this
for a minute if you
event.
want.
The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates,
in.
will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the
Switch over and
University
talk
of
to you guys in a
Utah
minute.
in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you
Hey, Diamond.
and good night. Thank you.
And thus, the first presidential debate of 2020 concludes a night of chaos and interruption, where
God.
bullying, where the
How did I know ABC was gonna start that shit?
former Vice President of the United States said of the president, "You are the worst president America has ever
He
had."
practiced that like 800 times. All right, hold on. Let me turn this shit around. How was everybody?
Trump's strategy tonight was to interrupt and to try
Check out my shirt I got for my birthday.
his opponent, but also the moderator, who was unable
Yeah,
to keep
Trump.
control.
When liberals lost their shit and the world had no TV.
Tonight is, can we really have 2 more of these debates with the type
So,
of behavior that was
what did you think, guys?
tonight?
You know what I was thinking, or I was thinking,
I don't know, actually. I'm not gonna lie. I'll keep it straight. Joe Biden was a lot more put together than I thought he was gonna be. I figured he'd either fall asleep or we'd catch him with an earpiece. Hi, Rita. I figured he'd fall asleep, we catch him with an earpiece or something like that. But apparently, he got a good old shot of stimulant. I don't know. I feel like Trump's not saying anything that we all don't, anybody that supports him doesn't already know. And the fact of it is that we're already so divided right now that if you're voting for Biden or if you're a liberal, you're voting for Biden regardless. You're not even listening. And if you're even, I was a liberal until 2016. I'm not here to preach to y'all. Excuse me. I've been working in the census, and this is the Trump administration, and I find that that's a giant waste of money. And so, believe me, I have complaints about this administration. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I feel like more things in my life have improved in the last 4 years than in the entire 8 years that I voted for Obama. I can't. That's literally what it comes down to. my life and the people that I know that are in my circle's life has improved. And although I can't wear my sweatshirt and my hat out in public because people don't understand. I mean, in my area they do, but not where I work, and a lot of times not here on YouTube anymore. Like I had a lot of diverse subscribers at one point, and I've lost a lot due to my support of the president. But me and my wife, gay couple, support the president. Our economic stance, our health care, our basically everything that matters has improved. And that's why I said, now they're going to go down what they're doing right now. I'm going to flip it over for a second so you can all see this. They're fact checking right now. They're fact checking the president's. This is how pathetic this has become. They are going to fact check everything he said tonight.
Vulnerable to the virus.
This is what I'm saying about the ridiculous division of this country. Like, come on. He said small people are not as society. That's why we have schools open, guys. I hate to say it, but this is the truth. They have a less chance of getting the severe symptoms of the coronavirus.
That the slowest recovery from a recession.
Yeah, he was so pale, Rita. Yo, and they are going to cheat. I hate to say it, but I don't know how we're going to get around this. I mean, I hope Trump he says he's going to have lots of security. Sorry, hang on. He's going to have lots of security at where the ballot counts are and shit like that, but I don't know if we're going to be able to really do anything about it, guys. This is going to be scary. This is the scariest time I think we've ever had right now because no side's going to accept it unless there's, first of all, this will be the first election that wasn't announced within the day after the election. Even last 2016 was a little awkward. Yo, that Hunter shit, man, they're not going to fact check that, Rita. You know that. They won't even bring that up. As soon as Chris Wallace said, let's talk about climate change, Joe goes, yeah, let's talk about that. He didn't want to talk about that. He didn't want to talk about his 7 grandchildren. He only talks about 5 of them. But either way, I feel like that if that was Donald Trump Jr. that did what Hunter did, that would have came up in the debate. So I feel it was only fair. And I hate the fact that Joe Biden only ever talks about his dead son, Beau. He only talks about his dead son, Beau, because his dead son, Beau, is the only one that ever did anything to talk about. But now the only one that's alive, the one that he got kicked out of the military because of cocaine, and Daddy was vice president, so Daddy put him in a nice cushy job off in Ukraine where he thought nobody would pay any attention to him, and they made a little money for this family at the same time. Now, if you're here because you like Joe Biden, I'm going to give you a little piece of advice. Go back and research the Biden family. Research Biden family nepotism, because if you think the Trump family has nepotism, the Biden family for 40 years has been caught up in scandals where Joe's brother has been making money, Joe's other son, who is no longer with us, has been making money, and Joe himself has been making inclusive deals with other countries, and it's always in selling out America. So the fact of it is, I think we should have to turn up in person. And I think if anybody cares about this election, whether you are a Democrat or Republican, you should go ahead. If you get your ballot in the mail, mail it in. Go ahead, because this is how you can tell if your stuff is legit. Because you mail your ballot in, and then you go in on election day. And if that ballot's been mailed in, the minute it goes through the post office, that barcode gets clicked, you showing up in person should not be allowed to vote. They will tell you right there, no, you cannot. So you get fined for what? Showing up, not showing up? Or for doing it after you've already mailed in? That'd be fucked up if they do that, Rita. That's really dirty. Damn. All right. Well, I don't know what Junior's saying right now. Hang on, let's see.
And pretend that it's true. And anyone who's reasonable, anyone who watches the entire thing, understands that not only did he disclaim
You're proud of your dad's performance tonight, Don Jr.
I'm always
Were you
proud of his performance. I think he's fighting hard for the American people. It's why he's gotten peace deals done in the Middle East. The holy grail of geopolitical politics. Everyone talks about it. No one's actually done it for Trump. It's why he's been able to pull us out of these endless wars. Because he doesn't just get steamrolled by everyone who wants to take advantage of him. That's why Joe Biden has a 47-year record in D.C. where you can't name an accomplishment of his. You can't. And that's a problem.
Beautiful.
If Joe Biden could have fixed
That's a
anything,
good thing,
he
Rita.
would have done it.
I think it should be that way everywhere. Unfortunately, I'm in New York. Oh yeah, Trump was, man. He was ready. He kept trying to slip Joe up every chance he got. He was like, "Who's that, Joe?" Because remember, he says that somebody said that the riots and stuff helped Trump, and Trump goes, "Yeah, who said that?" And you could see Biden had to think. He slipped up for a minute, and he's like, Kellyanne Conway. I want to see if they won't fact check that. Bet your ass they don't fact check that. But all right, hang on. Let's see. Let me turn this back down. So I don't know. I think that was out of 3. Because there's going to be 3 debates. I'm going to try to live stream all of them, but they won't let me live stream it like straight off YouTube, guys. They got it blocked, so you can't do it, which is bull. But either way, I'll still try to live stream it. And out of 3 of them, like I think last time I felt like Trump dominated every debate totally. Well, I feel like he did real good. He got every point out that he needed to get out, and even some that people are probably annoyed because he was talking over him, so on and so forth. But oh well, he got them points out that he needed the people to hear, the people who are still undecided. However, I don't think Biden was as messed up as we thought he was going to be. I think he's had a lot of practice, and I'm not going to lie. You guys might call me Kate the conspiracy theorist, but oh well. I feel like there's a reason this man refused a drug test and refused an independent moderator to check his ear for his earpiece, because he's been caught with that very skin-colored flat way down in his earpiece. He's been caught with that now, doing live interview, answering question and answers. And he got caught because his dumbass pulled up a picture of him and his son, and in the picture it reflected the monitor, and they were literally feeding him the answers on the monitor. That's not live. That's not him coming up with the answers. That's his handler feeding him. I want to hear what Joe has to say. So how do I know that this entire night there wasn't someone in Joe's ear saying what he needed to say? You know what I'm saying? I just feel like that's not going to be proven unless he agrees to have an independent person check his ear for the earpiece, and he refused it, and I don't understand why that didn't get brought up. And yeah, Biden was way on some stimulants tonight for sure, because he was way too awake. Like his eyes, he blinked like 3 times a minute. Right, and that's exactly it, Rita. The way she said it was not, and she didn't say like he was using the like, come on, if that was the case, why would he send in law enforcement? Why would he keep offering National Guard? Why would he come out and condemn Antifa, who, by the way, Joe Biden said was literally just an idea? That's what he said tonight. I believe they burned down how many cities and looted how many stores and destroyed how many communities at this point? I'm sorry, but that's a little bit more than an idea. So I just feel like, yes, Trump did win this one, but I feel like he's going to have to really bring the next 2 to show any of the independent people who are still hanging in there that literally, if you didn't pay attention, go back and watch this again. Biden said nothing the entire debate, guys. Nothing. He said nothing. Hang on. Let me turn this around. All right. Biden said nothing, y'all. Nothing. He kept saying, my plan will fix this. I'm not going to do what he did. He did not have one single plan set out that he could say, this is what I'm going to do. Oh wait, I'll take that back. He did say one thing. He's going to raise the out of your taxes. That's what he said. He said he's going to raise the shit out of taxes, and he's going to put us back in the Paris Climate Agreement, which will raise our taxes even more. Because, as you know, as the United States, we pay 10 times more of everything that we're in like that. That's why Trump pulled us out, because we weren't paying our our fair share. We were paying more than our fair share and expected to reach climate goals years earlier than, say, China, who is really emitting way more carbon than we are. We've already pulled back immensely. So, right, exactly. That's exactly it, Rita. I think it was just a matter of him saying, or her saying, look, all this stuff that's going on and these protests and these riots are not hurting Trump. They're hurting the Democrats because the Democrat mayors are the ones not coming out and condemning it. The Democrat DAs are the ones not charging people. Yeah, he was writing it down. Oh, God, Rita, I love somebody that pays attention like I do. I was going to say, Biden was taking notes. He was taking notes. When Trump would say little things during his 2 minutes, I'd keep seeing Biden write it down. And see, they denied him 15-minute breaks. And I think that's what they did instead of that. They made him write that shit. They're like, listen, because you can't come back and us have, remind you what to say, to what the comeback will be. You need to pay attention to those little slams and write it down as they go. But yeah, here, let's listen to Kamala, guys. Kamala's on. Hang on. Let's see what she's got to say. I'll be fair.
What's important on that stage, which is American families. And then you had Donald Trump, who really, I think, really denigrated the office of the President of the United States, much as he has done over the course of the last 4 years.
He's just not a politician. He never has been. And that's not going to change. We take the salt with the sugar, baby.
Why won't he talk about what he wants to do? What do you think should happen?
Well, I think he's very clear, John, which is that he is focused, as we all see in the next 35 days, and he is focused on, one, the process by which we're even having the conversation about the United States Supreme Court. We all just honored, and I was there while the great Ruth Bader Ginsburg was lying in state, the first woman ever.
Oh, we had to bring her up, right, Kamala?
And we see that the president and the Senate Majority Leader are pushing through a nominee while Americans
who's
are voting.
very well qualified.
About a debate, as has occurred in the past, about election year. We're talking about literally during an election.
It's
almost
different.
1 million people have voted, and they're trying to ram this nominee through, clearly for political purposes. So I think Joe was right to require the discussion to be focused.
Pay attention, because this is going to be your real president if they win, guys.
And the hypocrisy with which
this is who they have always wanted as Hillary's replacement since 2016. They've been working on her. And when she failed when Tulsi Gabbard took her out in the debates, Joe Biden was was the only way they could get her back in there. Understand that. Kamala Harris was always meant to win. And what happened was Tulsi Gabbard came along and she took her out during the debates and bringing up her record with keeping inmates locked up past their release date so she could use them for firefighters on the wildfires in California, locking people up for marijuana charges while laughing about how she smoked, things like that. She got taken down. So they had to have a plan B, and Joe Biden was the plan B. Why? Because Joe Biden is an empty shell, a puppet. He doesn't need any... They can literally just set him in front of us and he can just... I did this with Obama. I did that with Obama. I did that. He can live off whatever is left of the Obama legacy that hasn't been found out to be a complete disaster or lie, or even shame. Like the fact that I voted for him twice and then he's been caught in this spying thing disgusts me more than anything. But anyway, yeah, I'm reading your messages. Right, okay, so that's another thing. Trump can't be bought. The beauty of Trump is he cannot be bought. He's been able to find, first of all, he's donated every cent, so has the rest of the family. Anybody that's on the payroll at the White House literally donates all their payroll to charity. If you didn't know that, check that out. Secondly, if check out how much money the Trump name itself, the Trump business itself has literally lost in just since 2015. It's been they have had no gains. They have been in a downward slope since 2015 because they've had to give up so many foreign contracts as part of the deal he made as president. And so therefore, exactly, yes, Rita, you're so right on that. Oh my God. And you know what? I think a lot of them are, I honestly think a lot of African Americans are waking up to the fact that Joe Biden believes he's owed some type of vote because he was Obama. No, Joe Biden is the one that created the 94 crime bill that started the division of black families in this country. Oh, look what, King put some real shit down with that emoji.
And it looks like the vote coming in, 48-41.
Sure did.
In favor of Joe Biden. That's because most people came in.
I see you.
Already made up their minds. But look at this, Nora. How did the debate make you feel? 69% annoyed, way outpacing the 17% who said it made them feel.
Hold on a second. I'm going to take this off for a minute.
Anthony, thank you. Yeah, many people were watching this
Give me a
debate
minute
with
here.
a pit in their stomach. At 2 times, I think, Vice President.
I almost want to change it to a different one, guys. Hold on. I'm sorry. I get so depressed hearing the same thing. Like, can I have it switch up a little bit? There's an anomaly. I don't want to bite off him though. Let's see. How about the Blaze? Will probably hit me with a strike. I want to find somebody that won't hit me with a strike. We should go check out Mr. Reagan. Hang on. Oh, Trump says, I don't know, Bo. He's so, geez. Now they're going to make a big... Look, guys, look at the headline. Trump on Biden's late son. I don't know, Bo. No, you don't know, Bo, because he's dead. Obviously, now they're going to make a big deal out of it as if Trump didn't know he was dead. Of course they know he was dead. Let's see what the Rubin report says. I like Dave Rubin. He's like right in the middle.
Going into the voting booth. It gives you
Well, he's one of me. He's one of them
related to the economic recovery,
liberals that turn.
or this or that, right? Like,
He'll probably hit me, though.
Numbers, and they all kind of fudge numbers.
Hang on, let me turn off that light, guys.
But anyway,
shut up.
one of the other lines, I want to show one more clip and then analyze it a little bit. This was the moment when Biden said that Antifa is an idea, not an organization. Now, Antifa, which coordinates on Twitter, which we know is an actual organization of people that is quite...
I knew that was going to come back up.
And it is an actual group of people who are out there to organize, to burn down cities, or just do whatever the hell it is they want. I have been to plenty of events that have been protested by Antifa. So they're not an idea. If they were just an idea, I would go to my events, they would be successful.
I know they said Biden won the debate on CBS. That's ridiculous.
From these people called Antifa.
That's why I changed it for a minute. Let's get some different ideas in here just to see like fit. I just feel like it's fair.
This is an event that I did last year. I'm sure some of you have seen this clip. This thing went absolutely viral.
Because Rubin is an ex-liberal, so come on.
In Canada, I believe we were in Hamilton, Canada, and I did an event, a free speech event, which I did it with Maxime Bernier from the People's Party of Canada. He's basically a libertarian up there. We had Muslims and Jews and Christians and straight people and gay people and black people and white people and everybody on stage, and we had a great time. But Antifa was out there protesting. They were throwing stuff at us as we went in. Somebody knocked a little coffee on my shirt. If you're being protested, goes for everybody. Because it'll come to you one day. If you're ever being protested, you have to get into a building, don't hold a hot, open coffee with you. It's just not a great idea. Anyway, let's just throw to this video of this woman trying to get to the event that I was talking about. And remember, Joe Biden said that Antifa is an idea, not an organization. Yeah, I'm gonna have to drink for that one. Cheers, Grammy. Okay, so it turns out that elderly woman who was coming to an event, that all we talked about was free speech.
I'm not cracking a beer, I promise.
The opening of that event,
although I should,
all about free speech, was by a Muslim professor, an immigrant to Canada, talking about how wonderful the Western world is and everything else. I mean, the idea that anything racist there happened is just absolutely ridiculous, but this woman's being called a Nazi. This woman in her dozens of other stories of speaking over the last couple of years and having to deal with that. And it's not just me, and it's not just Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and all the people who have been threatened with violence
skipping
and the
him,
rest of
turn him
it by
too.
Antifa. So this is not an idea. And why is it, Joe Biden? Why? I mean, explain to me why, unless you're afraid to inflame your base and say, Antifa, you're bad. Antifa, however you want to say it. Antifa, you are bad guys. You cannot take over roads. You cannot violently take over buildings and burn things down. Why can't you just say that? Because so much of the base is mixed up in that he can't say it. And that's, Trump really was hitting on that with the law and order stuff, right? And you don't want to talk about law and order. You don't want to talk about law enforcement. So that, I think Trump did a nice job with. But Biden is going to have, I hope that he'll continue to get pushed on this. Antifa, they are not the good guys. Just yesterday, here in LA, at a place on Sunset Boulevard, famous Sunset Boulevard that everyone knows, Sunset Boulevard, right? Antifa and BLM, just these groups, and partly they're amorphous by design, so you could say they're an idea, not an organization. You don't know exactly who's there. It's not like they're walking around with laminated cards.
They're still designated terrorists.
So what did they do? They just literally shut down Sunset Boulevard, right at the Laugh Factory, right over there. There's a great old school deli there, and I used to get my hair cut on that corner, and they just decided to shut down the street. Now, you may like whatever it is that they're about. You may love radical Marxism and crazy communism and all the bananas lefty stuff, but you can't vote it in then.
Right.
Vote in your communism.
Don't force it on us.
But you can't just take over streets. So when Biden says it's an idea, that's the worst sort of pandering. But I think what's happened here is it'll backfire on him because people can see the videos. And this is also why the big tech thing is so important right now, because big tech and YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, these are the ways that we can communicate with each other. So if they're messing with us with algorithms and shadow bans and the rest of it, well then eventually we won't be able to.
All right, I'm going to switch it before I get copy straight. I'll go to something else.
What you're seeing here.
Let's see what else we can see. Just because if I stay on one too long, they'll I don't care about monetization. I just don't want them to take it down on me right now.
So I gotta know.
Oh, let's see what he says.
You were the guy in the office that said it. Your son took $3 million from the mayor of
Bye, Rita. I know I'm secretly eating right now. All right. You have a good night.
You have to frame that, though, in a way that makes voters care.
Yeah.
Are you guys, if I beat you guys again, are you going to try to do another coup?
Oh, jeez, you look like a ghost.
People that voted for me, like you did for me 4 years ago. See, there's difference. People want elections to be about them, not about the candidates.
Yeah,
and
sorry.
these guys made it about themselves.
Let me see what I can do about this, guys. Hold on. I'll turn the lights off and see if that helps, okay?
He tried to say, and he tried to cover that, but he didn't do it well. When he said there is no peaceful transition of power. He's right. You know, that means what you're saying now is not a peaceful, and that is something everybody wants to know. Are you going to abide by the rules? And the answer to that, if you would have said that, will you accept the election? If everyone abides by the rules that we all know, sure I am. If somebody's breaking the rules, no.
Can I go back to the packing the court question real quickly? Because it was not just packing the court, it was also the filibuster, right? And here's Joe Biden, who's in the Senate for 127 years, a guy who was supposed to be
185.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's supposed to be a guy who cares about the Senate rules, right? This was his blood, right? He lived and died in the Senate, and he goes through this, and his answer to both of those questions, packing the court and getting rid of the filibuster, was, I don't want to answer that because whatever I say is going to become the issue. Well, it doesn't become an issue if you say you're not going to do it, right? Yep. So that was an answer. He is going to do it. The American people should know that. And if there is one journalist left in America, they got to get him to answer that question.
Yes.
Narrator, there's not one journalist.
There's not. Let me go to Allie Stuckey, who was watching this. Were you at home watching this, Allie?
Yes, my husband and I were at home watching this. Well, some of it we were actually watching. Some of the time we had to divert our eyes.
Right.
So
tell me how it played to you and how you think it's going to play to millennials and to women.
My frustration at the beginning of this, I was talking to a lot of my friends who consider themselves conservative, but mostly apolitical. I was talking to the women who follow me on Instagram, Our first frustration was with Trump that he seemed to not let Biden dig his own grave and his consistent insistence upon the bullying tactics. I didn't like that. But as the debate went on, my frustration grew with Chris Wallace and it becoming this 2-on-1 debate to where Biden was never held against the wall for the things that we are actually concerned with.
He never got an answer.
His stance on the police and BLM and critical race theory and law and order.
And he got out of answering all those questions.
No, he's going to be soft on China, and I can get the answer to any of those things.
Did you have a problem with Chris Wallace saying that these were civil rights education classes, when indeed they were classes on critical race theory, which is completely different?
Right. He said, what's wrong with racial sensitivity training?
Right.
Well, critical race theory is not racial sensitivity training. I thought Trump did really well in this, that this is a lesson to hate America, and that's absolutely right. Chris Wallace has a lot to learn in this area. He probably didn't even realize how much he showed his bias. But yeah, I did have a problem with it. It showed ignorance and obviously just in antipathy towards the conservative stance on critical race theory.
Do millennials even watch this?
Well, my millennial friends did. I can't speak for all millennials, but millennials are getting up there now. We're in our 30s, and
Yeah,
some of them are trying
almost
to get
40.
their 40s. And so we've got kids, we've got mortgages, we have to care about this kind of stuff.
Damn straight.
And do you think it changed anybody's mind?
No, not this debate.
It depends on if they watch the whole debate. I think if people in the middle trying to decide who really care more about
All three are gonna matter. That's why I told you guys that all three debates I'm gonna stream because they're all gonna matter.
But some people do. If they just watch the 30 minutes, the first 30 minutes of the debate, I think they go against Trump because they don't like his personality. But the whole debate, I actually think that
Hi.
ended up hearing a little bit better.
Do you think that Joe Biden looked
Hi, Tiffany.
he was, starting to be like my grandfather when he was towards the end?
It's okay, you're late. We're just checking like out different things. We were on CBS, they were kind of negative. We're on Blaze, but they're kind of, if you're a Biden fan, they're kind of negative right now. So I'm just trying to give everybody a little bit of different post-debate.
What is he going to be like 4 years down the road? I mean, it's just not even, I can't even comprehend that he would be the president in 4 years based on the rapid growth or the rapid decline. Did that come across to you at all or not?
Yeah, it did, and I think it would have come across
Bring
more
up right in the
if he had
notes.
been allowed to speak, because what we saw is that he can't speak for longer than about, I would say, 5 to 7
No
seconds
real thoughts.
without losing his train of thought, and Chris Wallace having to step in and remind him what he was talking about. This is true when he is in interviews as well. But Trump, being who he is, and maybe some people think that this demonstrated strength somehow, I didn't, he would insert himself into Biden's response when it would have been a lot better for us to see that weakness on display and for Biden to dig his own grave by wandering off into these trails and talking about nothing. So, yes, I did see that weakness. I saw that cognitive decline.
Trying to move it a little bit.
Distracted from that a little bit by being so bombastic. I wish we would have seen more of that from Biden.
Let me play a couple of clips, and I'd like to get your thoughts.
All right, let's see what we can do. Now we got that. We'll try one more. I noticed that. Where's Regan? Right there. Oh no, he's not. He ain't started yet. All right, hold on. Here we go. Well, let's see about the debate. He's Putin's puppy, Democrat. Oh, jeez. Of course he called him. We must have missed that. All right, let's pick one that's in the middle. Of course, they fact checked his taxes. See that? They fact check. Do you notice they didn't fact check anything about Hunter? Nothing. Trump. They fact checked Trump said Corona would be gone by Easter. They fact checked his taxes. They fact checked Biden saying Trump has done virtually nothing for African Americans, which no, they didn't fact check it. Excuse me, they're just replaying it. Biden totally opposed to defunding the police. Okay, so what is his plan? That's what we're trying to find out. You say you're not with the left's plan to defund, then what plan are you with? Let's check. Of course, this one's got an ad. Hold on, guys. Sorry.
But are you willing
It's terrible.
to condemn white supremacists and militia groups
Sorry.
to say that they
I don't know
need to
why
stand
it's like
down
that.
and not add to the violence in a
me
number
pull
of
it
these
back.
cities and as we've seen.
See,
of course,
I gotta pull it back.
I'm willing to do that, but
Go ahead, Dave.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are
If
you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see
Well,
peace.
then do it, sir.
Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would
white
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Oh, Proud Boys. The ones that go wave their flags and pray and then go drink beer. Really?
Somebody's got to do something.
They've burned down anything lately? I believe one just got hunted down and shot in the streets of freaking Portland. Let's be honest, guys.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
You heard it again.
That's what his
Antifa's an idea. What you've been watching night after night after night in Portland and in your own cities and your own states. Exactly. That's an idea. It's all in your head. You're imagining it all, you guys. You're imagining it all. All right, guys. My wife's got to work in the morning, so I'd love to stay here all night and bullshit, but I didn't realize I'd get as many people coming for this, so maybe I'll start doing a little bit more political stuff. I've kind of kept that part of my life to myself, but definitely I will do the next live stream. I appreciate everybody coming. Hit the like button, hit the share button.